Hello, everyone. I'm here to present to you MIMOCrypt, the first full-fledged defensive mechanism towards Wi-Fi sensing-based attacks. So I'll first go through the basics on Wi-Fi sensing. Then I'll explain why the existing countermeasures may fail, which is then followed by our encryption design, including how to balance the performance between sensing and the communication between different sensing users. And we also add some further optimization onto sensing side. And finally, we will evaluate the performance. So what is Wi-Fi sensing, how it works? Basically, we have a Wi-Fi channel, and then it has a transmitter and receiver. So if the transmitter transmits something known, let's say S, and go through a channel, and then the receiver receive Y. So the channel H is also called channel state information, which can be derived by known S and received Y. So if there are things happening in between this channel, for example, I'm waving my hand, then the channel or the CSI H will be changed. So this is the so-called Wi-Fi sensing, because we can get to know what is H, what is its variance in terms of both amplitude, time, and the phase, although phase is mostly used. So this is so-called Wi-Fi sensing. It can do a lot of things, including tracking, including activity detection, and even vital sign monitoring. So Wi-Fi sensing actually has two modes. One is a device-based, which is mostly just to locate the device. And the other one is so-called device-free, which doesn't allow the subject or the human being to wear any devices, but we just simply rely on a side channel to monitor its behavior. But there is a catch here, which is the device-free sensing by far, well, actually by the last year, only applies to one subject. If there are more than one subject, all those behaviors of different subjects or human beings will be mixed together. So it has been an issue lasting for more than 10 years. So the SOTA is by last year until this year, so we have two major publications in both Mobicom and Mobisys, which fundamentally solve the issue. So on one side, we allow the device-based sensing to be extended to general human sensing instead of just staying on localization. On the other side, we also relax the single person limitation on device-free sensing. So, for audience who are interested, you can refer to our paper, to the other conferences. So now that comes the problem. So if we use Wi-Fi sensing can sense different behavior of users, so where's my privacy? Where's my security? In fact, we have demonstrated that we can easily, meaning that we don't need to do any hacking, we don't need to, change the device in any sense. We just sit by, and then we can listen to the password we can eavesdrop the password you input on your mobile phone, which was published in last year's CCS. So the problem comes. So we do have good sides, which is we can now sense multiple person in realistic scenarios, but that also impose security or privacy risks onto us, because you don't feel safe anymore by typing password in public. So how can we handle this issue? Well, we are not the first one who were aware of this issue. So even just before the multi-person sensing becomes realistic, some pioneers have already thought about this issue. And there are two prominent proposals. One was in NSDI 16, and one was about 2 years ago, again in S&P. So the first proposal was to say, well, if we have one sensing user that is legitimate, he or she is allowed to sense, then after receiving the Wi-Fi sensing information or the CSI, it will absorb the information, but then inject some jamming into the channel so that no one else can sense. That's okay if you just don't have only one legitimate user, sensing user, I mean, but what if we have more? So the other one, which was more recent, is actually brute force, because it basically requires, by using this so-called intelligent reflection surface, to generate jamming to everyone, including both communication users. By default, that's the main user for Wi-Fi, and also legitimate sensing users. So this is not really what we want, right? So what we want is, a full-fledged defensive mechanism that on one side thwart the attackers, while on the other side, we still preserve the performance of legitimate users, including both communication and sensing users. So this is what we said called multi-user scenario. In multi-user scenario, a very, plain solutions to say we offer encryption, right? So if we offer encryption onto the message and then we convey the encryption key to legitimate users, then we can thwart the attackers. However, here things becomes different, because what we are trying to hide, we're trying to encrypt, meaning the plain text. They're not digital informations, they're physical. There are human behaviors. We type informations with password. The typing is what we need to, typing behavior is what we need to preserve, instead of the password to be typed. Those things can be digitally encrypted, but here the attacker is aiming towards the physical behavior of typing. So in order to preserve physical plain text, the encryption has to also be physical. We definitely need a physical encryption mechanism. That's something we need to do because it doesn't exist. By the way, so this is somehow related to physical layer security, but not exact. So see, how do we do that, right? So remember that we have this relation between sending some known S. Here it's actually called long training sequence, and then go through by let the S going through the channel H or CSI, sorry, and then the receiver receive Y. So knowing Y and S, we can derive the H. So that's Wi-Fi sensing. So firstly, we can't, here what we really want to encrypt is the physical channel, which can't be done by conventional cryptographic keys or digital keys, basically. But there are also people asking, can we just encrypt S? In fact, here we have limited time. I'm not going to detail, but let me tell you, so it's just offering very low strength, because the S is a very short, known sequence, find a bit sequence. We can easily guess the key, even if you encrypt it. So what we really need is to physically encrypt the channel. So here we should highlight that the channel actually is separated into two parts. One is the air channel, which we can't really control, but the other channel is what we could control, is something happening in between, within the Wi-Fi card. So here we have different Wi-Fi technology called OFDM, called MIMO. OFDM has different subcarriers, involve different subcarriers, and the MIMO involve different antennas. So what we can do is to put our whatever keys onto this sub components. So here we have illustrated that we can put keys onto different subcarriers, and most prominently, we can put keys onto individual antennas. And then we let this thing to be transmitted at the same time and get mixed in the air. So that offers the encryption, physical encryption. So here we just illustrate the results. If I just wave the hand without encryption, you can clearly see that I'm waving the hand by looking at the channel or the CSI. But if we offer this encryption as we described before, then now you see this is totally scrambled information, so you can't distinguish anything out. So yeah, problem virtually solved, right? So we offer a physical encryption which can encrypt the channel instead of just encrypting any digital information, right? So, well, that's not the end of story, because remember that we are actually working on so-called integrated sensing and communication, meaning that we have to take care of both sensing and communication at the same time. So, and basically, we definitely can provide keys to them for them to decrypt the information, and you know, presumably they should be able to recover whatever they should have without encryption. However, here, remember here, we're using physical or analog encryption. So the difference between analog and digital encryption is that it doesn't guarantee fidelity, meaning that if you encrypt something analogically and then you decrypt it, you don't really get exactly what you have, because all this physical or analog procedure involved in between. So this has something to do with, for example, in digital computer, 1 minus 1 equals to 0, but in fact, it's not really 0. So if you plus 1 again, you don't really get back to 1. So here we need to take care of this trade-off. Basically, we need to find this encryption keys that can maintain a good balance between sensing, communication, and also between the legitimate sensing users and the attackers, illegitimate sensing. So here we actually formulate, optimization problems, aiming at different goals. We need to actually minimize the so-called signal to distortion ratio to Eve, the attacker, and we want to maximize this SDNR for other legitimate users. And so solving this problem is pretty difficult in a way because it's non-convex. We don't have a unique optimal solution. Well, but we don't really aim at just finding that solution. So we aim at finding a good set of good encryption keys that can maintain rather adequate balance between good guys, good performance, and bad guys, bad performance. So that we can do, and we can do this from time to time, and so that we can also switch keys when necessary. So last but not least, we also want to reduce the encryption overhead, because you probably noticed that here the encryption keys are complex numbers, they're not bits. So if we need, for example, 60, the length of 64 for the length of the key. So each of this component is not just a bit, 10, but it's for example, 60 bits real number. Actually, 264 bits real numbers. So maybe it's not necessary under some circumstance to convey the whole key to legitimate users. For example, if we're just aiming on sensing, then we should know that the sensing requires lower information granularity than communication. Therefore, we probably don't need, actually, we will show that we do not need to offer the whole key to the legitimate sensing users. Basically, what we do is that we allow each sensing user to train a so-called, to train a so-called dynamic network. So this dynamic network is actually formed by a combinatorial combination of different encoders. So in order to handle different encryption keys. So here, what we need to do is, after training this model, what we need to do is just to provide a kind of selector, which is created from the key. Actually, it's a hash of the key. Use this hash key or key hash to act as a selector to choose which encoder we use For example, if we have 8 encoders involved in a dynamic network, so we can offer up to 256 choices. In fact, it can handle much larger capacity than this. So then when we use this, network to recognize human behaviors, for example, typing, the vital signs, this or has to do just by using the selector to trigger different selections instead of knowing the whole key. So we just need to dynamically change the local inference network in order to adapt to different encrypted channels. So with all this, we have completed the whole design. So let me just remind you. So we have the first in physical encryption onto the physical channel, although it is applied not in the air, but into our Wi-Fi card. And secondly, within all these usable keys, we want to choose the best that can balance the performance between different users. And finally, we also try to make a lightweight, key conveying process for sensing users, so that we don't need to convey the whole long key or large volume keys to sensing users, but just its hash. Okay, so with all this, the final question is, what's the performance, right? So here we have just a very compact illustration of the performance. On one side, we use different Wi-Fi sensing proposals, which has been published in the previous decade. So we show that regardless of which prominent Wi-Fi sensing algorithm or mechanism we use, they always behaving the same, which is if we use encryption, the accuracy will be reduced to below 20%, actually just around 16. And if without encryption, they all reach about 95, or 90%. So basically, they were very useful as they claimed, but if our encryption mechanism MIMOCrypt is applied, so they can't do anything good if they are an attacker. They are attackers. So on the other side, we also show that for communication, I'll simply just show that the bit error rate difference between applying encryption or without encryption. So there is a little bit increase in this BER, but it's very minor. So to the scale of only a few percent, which is, I would say, adequate. Retaining the communication performance. So now the last question is what we have been asked by many reviewers. So which is, if we have a lot of antennas, meaning that if the attacker, has a lot of antennas, this antenna can be obtained either by physically put a lot of antennas, having a very, luxury detector or Wi-Fi card, or he or she can actually move around, creating so-called virtual antennas. So just suppose maybe the attack has a lot of antennas. The question is, could he or she use this diversity offered by antennas to actually decrypt our encrypted physical behavior? So the answer is actually no. So here we just offer a very brief security analysis. For the full-fledged analysis, you can refer to our paper. So here the case is that because our channel was unknown, is to be estimated even without encryption. Here we actually encrypt onto this unknown channel. So this creates 2 unknown parameters at least. Well, without considering that we can have a lot of keys onto it. So let's say just 1 key, 1 channel unknown. So previously, by knowing Y and S, we can derive the H, the unknown channel. But here onto that unknown channel, we have encryption key. So now you add another antenna. You add another antenna, so you actually create a new pair of unknown parameters, right? So you don't know the key, you don't know the channel. you create a new antenna, you create a new channel. So whenever you increase an antenna, so the unknown number increases at the same time, actually double. So in fact, the diversity really doesn't help because used to be the case is that if you just have only one unknown parameter, so the more observation you have onto it, the better chance you can obtain the good estimation of that unknown parameter. But now things are different. So that's what we call diversity backfires, because diversity actually create more unknowns. So the results of the different antennas also shows what we claim. So we can increase the antenna from 1 to 80. The accuracy of that hacker doesn't really help. Well, at the same time, so in fact, the accuracy of sensing users will be increased with antenna quality. That's basically very much understandable. All right, so I guess that's it for my presentation. Thank you. So if you have any questions, please ask us online because we are unable to attend the conference. Thank you.